Good morning, guys. I am going to quickly, since the day 11 video didn't post, and Allison messaged me yesterday on Dojo, and she said she wasn't really sure about the caves page right here. I'm going to go ahead and go over it with you all, and then I'm also going to go over the puzzle riddles, the math riddles from that day, because those were two really important things that I talked a lot about on that video, and I know that they didn't post, so I figured we could talk about them real quick. The first part the first one says on the caves paper, all right, we're going to look at the caves paper first, all right. Number 1 right here says to draw a line, all right, to match each book to its title genre. So a fable is a made-up story that usually has a talking animal in it. So remember that whenever you're looking at the titles, think about one that has something about a talking animal. All right, a story about travel obviously will be a story about going somewhere. Adventure will be a story about adventure, something that you would think of as being an adventure for somebody to go on if it talks about somebody going on an adventure. Fantasies have things in them that we don't really have in our everyday world. Talking animals, fairy godmothers that are turning things into pumpkins like Cinderella, unicorns, mermaids, those are all things that aren't real in our world, so those are fantasy stories. And then a biography is a story about somebody, so think about which one of those titles would be all about somebody. If you look at number 2, it says circle the helping verb and underline the action verb in each sentence. All right, so this is fairly easy. So verbs are action words. All right, so if you look at number 1, it says the bats are hanging from the cave ceiling. All right, well, your subject is the bats. All right, so you know what it's talking about. It's talking about bats. All right, ask yourself, what are the bats doing? This is going to be your action verb. The bats are hanging, so that's their action. And the helping verb is the word that comes between, I spelled verb wrong. I don't have a tissue with me. That come between the subject and the action. All right, so the bats are hanging. So your helping verb is are. It's helping your action. All right, so the word that comes between the subject and what the subject is doing is your helping verb. For part 3, it says to change the word cave. Change one letter in the word cave to go along to complete each little phrase. So we have the word cave, C-A-V-E. All right, and then we're going to change one letter in this word each time to finish the thought. So a curved stick cane. So that's going to be C-A-N-E. All right, I don't know if you've seen people use stick canes before. So a curved stick cane. The past tense of give is gave. So we're going to change the C to a G. A small bay is a cove. So we're changing the A to an O for cove. All right, to motion goodbye is to wave. The C is being changed into a W. All right, and I'm going to leave the last one for you all to do. Hopefully you've got through my 4 examples and understand what's happening. And then you all can do a restaurant and finish that, okay? Living in the dark, you're just going to read that passage and write the main idea. Remember, your main idea is only one sentence. They literally only give you 2 lines to write it, so it's not going to be a whole lot. What is the passage about, and what is it telling you the most about it, all right? So I'm pretty positive that since we're talking about living in the dark, and the second word in the sentence says animals, my subject is probably going to be animals. Animals that do what? Animals that live in the dark. All right, so why what are they telling us that's important out of that? So that's all you have to put into a sentence. Animals that live in the dark, blank. All right, number 5, all you have to do is add N-E-S-S to each word. So you have darkness, blackness, dampness, coldness. And then add a coordinating conjunction to make these 2 simple sentences into 1 compound sentence. All right, so you're trying to put these 2 together. Conjunction words are words like and, but, so. All right, so think about the word that is going to fit best to put those 2 sentences together. So you're going to have no period in the middle. Instead of it was dark, so you're not going to have 2 sentences. It was dark in the cave, period. We had flashlights. How can you put, what word can you put in there to put those 2 together? So that's what you're going to do on this page. If you still have questions about it, let me know, and I can definitely help you out. All right, and then quickly to look at the riddle, or the decoder, the Place Value Riddle decoder pages. I went through a lot of this vocabulary on that video, so definitely my fault for not redoing it. This side's pretty simple. All it's talking about is even and odd numbers. All right, so we know even numbers are numbers like 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. All numbers that can be split in half are even numbers. Odd numbers are the numbers that come in between 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, 13, 15, 17. These are all odd numbers. All right, so see what number it's asking you to look at and then decide is it even or odd. And if you want to go ahead and make yourself a list of those numbers at the top of the page, you can do that and that will help. All right, so a couple quick things. It does talk about a hundredths and a tens place, and we started talking about this before we got out of school, and we're going to talk about it a whole bunch next year. But we have that decimal, and after the decimal you have the tenths. It's a tenth of a whole, and then you have the hundredths, something that would be a hundredth of a whole. All right, so they go in this order. You have the decimal, then you have the tenths place, then the hundredths place. All right. So the hundredths place, all right, so we're looking at this last place value here. Here's your decimal. I thought I paused it. All right, here's your decimal right here, and then you have tenths, hundredths. So the first one is this far right number. What number is going to go in that far right place? And the clue says it's half the number of months in a year. All right, well, how many months are in a year? It's easy, Miss Tierney, 12. Half of that, so divide that by 2, equals 6. So the number that goes in your hundredths place is a 6. All right? The ones place is the missing factor in the equation 24 times blank equals 48. All right, so this is the ones. That's going to come right before the decimal. All right. 24 times what equals 48? I think you can do the math on that, so I'm not going to give you that one. The hundreds, so we're going to skip the tens and go to the hundreds place. All right, we're going to skip the tens, go to the hundreds. The hundreds place is 3 less than the number of hours in half a day. So we have to ask ourselves, well, how many hours are in a day? 24. Half of 24 is 12. 3 less, 12 minus 3 gives you 9. So the hundredths place is going to be a 9. Okay, and then least common multiples, we haven't, hopefully you know what a dozen is. 4 talks about a dozen. A dozen is 12 if you don't know that. So the difference, hopefully you know what that word means, between a dozen, hey baby, between a dozen and 5. What you doing? All right, the difference between a dozen and 5. And then if we think about least common multiples, all right, it says the least common multiples of 2 and 4. So the first thing you have to do is find the multiples of 2 and the multiples of 4. So make a list. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. That should be plenty. Skip count by 4s. 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24. All right. What is the smallest, least, the smallest what is the smallest number they have in common? And that number right here is the 4. All right, so the tenths place is going to be a 4. I already erased the other part. So in the tenths, which is going to come right after the decimal, you're going to put a 4. The tenths place is the denominator. Remember, numerator on top, denominator on the bottom. The 10,000ths place is the product of 4 times 2. You can do that. In the 100,000ths place is the number of faces on a cube. Since we didn't really get to the geometry part last year, faces are the sides. So how many sides does a cube have? If you have a cube in your house, I recommend checking it out. But if you don't, a cube has 6 sides to it. And we'll definitely be looking at that more next year too. So hopefully that will let you check your work for day 11. If you have any questions about it, let me know.